A year ago this week, an African-American man named George Floyd was murdered by police during an arrest in Minneapolis. The incident was caught on camera and sent shockwaves around the world. Black Lives Matter became a global movement, and the raised fist used during protests and marches reminds us of one iconic sporting image. At the 1968 Mexico Olympic Games, Tommie Smith and John Carlos had won gold and bronze respectively in the men's 200 meters. On the podium, each wearing a single black glove, they raised their fist as a protest for the treatment of blacks and other ethnic minorities in the USA.
It was the silent gesture heard around the world, and people ignited a flame within themselves in the understanding of what happened, because John Carlos and Tommie Smith never said a word. It was the word that was devoured by the souls of those who saw what happened. It was the viewers' words and not the doers' words.
Expelled from the Games, Smith and Carlos returned home to death threats and economic hardship.
With us saying that then, we were viewed as militant in our thinking, deranged in our basic reason to want to live, because we were different, because we wanted equality, and because we used athletics, which we were PhDs in, to highlight the issues of need. We were not supposed to do that. We were supposed to be good boys. Go up, win your gold medal, put your hand over your heart, and respect a flag that did not respect you. I don't think so.
26 years later, Indigenous Australian athlete Cathy Freeman celebrated Commonwealth gold on the track with both the Australian and Aboriginal flags. The reaction in Australia was divided, and the story was front-page news.
A lot of people for so long now have acknowledged the fact that Aboriginal community in Australia has had a flag of our own and have never had a problem with it before, and if they had never expressed the problem they had with it. And people were very unhappy about that. They were saying things like, I'm so glad that, the Australian Greeks or the Australian Italians or Australian Croatians, didn't, do their victory laps parading their flag as well as the Aussie flag. But, 75% of Australians thought that what I did was all right because Australia was our home in the first place.
30 years earlier, Yvonne Goolagong was dominating women's tennis and embracing her Indigenous heritage. On the men's side, Arthur Ashe remains the only black man to have won the Wimbledon, Australian and US Open titles.
When I was 12 years old in Richmond, Virginia, my coach, Ronald Charity, tried to enter me in the Richmond City tournament, and I was turned down politely because I was black. But that makes an impression on you when you're 12 years old. And then in 1968, at Wimbledon, Cliff Drysdale of South Africa tells me that if I wanted to play in the new South African Open, I wouldn't be able to play. They don't let whites and blacks play together. And here was a reminiscent of what had happened to me when I was 12. I wasn't gonna let that happen to me again.
Ashe led the way for change both on and off the tennis court, and along with Althea Gibson, undoubtedly inspired the Williams sisters. Venus and Serena have 30 Grand Slam singles titles between them, and a legion of fans around the world.
I think it's important for kids to have a positive role model, especially me being in a sport that Black people predominantly haven't been in much before. And just to be doing well and have so many kids want to follow, just kids of all races and all colors and all backgrounds.
It was in 1992 when we first met a 12-year-old Venus and her 11-year-old sister Serena.
If you were a tennis player, who would you want to be like?
Well, I like other people to be like me.
In 1990, we met another promising young star, this time a 14-year-old golfer by the name of Tiger Woods.
Since I'm black, it might be even bigger than Jack Nicklaus. I might be even bigger than him, to the blacks. I may be sort of like a Michael Jordan in basketball, or something like that.
Even 30 years ago, a young Tiger was all too aware of the prejudice he faced in a sport built on exclusivity.
Ooh. Ooh. Every time I go to a major country club, always feel it. You can always sense it. People are always staring at you. What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. When I go to Texas or Florida, you always feel it because they're saying, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. And that's probably because that's where all the slavery was. So, oh well.
Over in South Africa, Errol Tobias became the first man of colour to play in the national rugby union team. Despite the country following the policy of apartheid, in 1981, Tobias played for the Springboks internationally, including an eye-opening tour of Great Britain.
You could walk into every shop, every restaurant. There weren't, notices on at the entrances that only whites or whatever. So it was a different world for us. And in getting here back to Jan Smuts Airport, suddenly you saw again only whites. It was a big backward step.
One man who was denied the chance to compete on the highest stage in his sport was Herb Carnegie. In the 1940s and 50s, Herb was one of Canada's most talented ice hockey players. However, the National Hockey League never came calling.
The most devastating thing to me was knowing that players on my team were getting the opportunity for tryouts, whose record wasn't as good as mine, which clearly showed discrimination and racism of the highest order. It was losing faith in humanity, you might say.
Also on the ice, Serena Williams dazzled the figure skating world during the 1990s. The French skater may be the only person to land a backflip on one blade during Olympic competition, but it never converted into a medal.
Yes, it's true that I'm the only black skater in Europe. In the States, there was Debbie Thomas, and I've taken over from her, I guess. And when I used to watch her before I started taking part in big competitions myself, I thought it exceptional to see a black woman skating. There are very few of us, so I consider myself very lucky.
In 1989, we caught up with the famous Jamaican bobsleigh team, whose exploits at the Calgary Winter Olympics the year before went on to inspire the Disney film Cool Runnings. Their legacy continues, with Jamaica competing in all but 2 of the Winter Games since that memorable debut. Jamaica have also made waves in other sports.
My name is Alia Atkinson. I am a Jamaican sprinter. My specialty, the 100 meters. The 100 meters breaststroke.
In 2014, Alia made history by becoming the first black woman to win a swimming world title. 26 years earlier, Anthony Nesty had become the first to win Olympic gold. The number of black swimmers competing at elite level is slowly increasing, but 2-time Olympic champion Cullen Jones believes there is still more to be done.
I think the reason that a few years ago it was shock and dismay that someone of African American descent would be in the water is because black people themselves say that they don't swim. I mean, it's a stigma in the black community that black people do not swim. And when an entire culture believes that, I mean, I think everyone else is going to start to believe that too.
And finally, it would be remiss of us to ignore the man who made headline news at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. By winning 4 gold medals, Jesse Owens comfortably silenced Adolf Hitler's ideals of Aryan superiority.
I think Jesse Owens is the greatest there's ever been because, I mean, Usain Bolt is phenomenal. I think I did okay, but neither of us can say, or Carl Lewis even can say that we've done the types of things that Jesse Owens was able to do, and in such a short career compared to my career, which was 10 years long, and Carl's career, which was even longer. He had won Olympics, but broke world records in 4 different events, even broke world records, 4 different world records in one day, you know, and that's just incredible.